Junkhead is a song I've been thinking about all week, like for the last week and a half. Actually, no, yeah, for a whole week. I'm going to put up the lyrics because I think it really defines an artist's brain. That even if you take away the words of like drugs, right, up to do with drugs, about junkhead, junk being drugs, heroin, cocaine, and all that shit. That's not really good for you, and that's why you see a lot of these guys dying, right? Which is kind of sad because, like, I always regret the loss of talent. That's one thing I've always, been like really anti when it comes to that sort of thing. So I'm going to put up the lyrics for Junkhead so you guys can see that, and one of the things about the song is that it talks about, a user's mind, right? Someone who's addicted to drugs. And so because of that, they, they're constantly stuck to that thing. And I had a discussion about this with my brother-in-law. I was going to say cousin, but my brother-in-law, who's very smart. He's about 2 years older than me. He's around about 52. He's administrator at a hospital, right? So and he's dealt with addicted nature with people in hospital and stuff as an administrator of an entire wing, right? I think it's an entire wing at a hospital. So he's up there, right? So and he's, his mum's was a nurse, right? Retired now. And so my sister is a nurse, right? Is working in the cancer ward. And so my brother-in-law is like about ward 6 or 4 and deals with like, during COVID, his entire ward floor was turned into the COVID wing, right? So this is a guy who's very smart, has spent probably about, gosh, when did he get married to my sister? But he was, studying and doing that stuff beforehand. So probably about 30 odd years, maybe 25 odd years. So today, just before I finish, start on that, I'm going to be looking at this. I've decided to work at the lip. So this kind of will help me to, work out where the lip is, and then I can carry on with the rest of stuff. So as you can see, over the last 4 sort of sessions, it takes a lot to do something like this. And so when you go and see, like, why does it cost so much? I mean, I'm doing a live stream, so I haven't been spending, I probably could do this in half that time. So if I've done about, say, 9 hours or 12 hours, 10 hours, whatever, I could probably do this in 5, but that's 5 hours. So if you look at like the minimum wage, it's 25 bucks an hour, kind of 20 hours, $20 an hour. I remember when it used to be $6 an hour, right? Or $5 when I first started working way back in 1986, 87, 88. But now you're like, $20 an hour, and somebody's got to pay for that, and it usually ends up being the customer, right? It's not the employer who ends up paying for that, because he's still got his bills to pay as well. So it all, anyway. So let's say I spent already 7 hours on this, right? Give or take, if I'm not talking and stuff, right? So with that in mind, if you really think about it, this is already 140 bucks, but that means nothing when it's actually out there and it's the customer who decide, or someone who loves your work, that's going to go, oh yeah, that's what it's worth that much. So with this auction, with the auction of the fundraiser that's going on, this is what it's for, right? For the Quarry Art Center, right? So with the Quarry Art Center fundraiser, right? I just, for me, I just love that place, and I really, really want to do something that's why I'm doing the stream, so I can actually promote the place as well as, show you what I'm doing while I'm doing it for that place, for the trust, and that you guys can see that, I believe in it enough to spend time doing this. I mean, it's also like, it's kind of like helps me with, promoting and doing this, but also, with the channel. But the one thing I'm really pleased about is that this happens every year, and it gives me a chance every year to do something physical. I missed out last year, but I got the first 3 years, right? So so like I said, it gives me a chance to promote, chance to be a part of that, be a part of my community in this way, So yeah, so let's talk about like this Junkhead, right? Let's talk about this lyric. Now, one of the saddest thing, and this is the thing, right? If you really think about it, actually, would it be better if I go to the page itself so you guys don't see the rest of it? Let me just find out how I can get there without, what page is this on? Here we go. So Genius, right? So Genius has got it. So I'm going to read through the lyrics of Junkhead, and I'm going to show you how, for me, how it corresponds to a creative's mind, right? So let me put this up here. So Junkhead, because I'll clip this now for a short thing. And like I said, I've thought about this for, for a while. I mean, for this past week or so, about how, this this song, if you really think about it, it's kind of, if you remove the words from Alice in Chains' Junkhead, certain words, it's really about an artist, right? And how we are very different in our mindset, in our mental capacity with our creativity. Perfect timing, right? Here we go. We've got I'd Victim.
Hello. How's
Oh,
it
why
going?
do I have you like that when I should have you like this? There we go. Perfect
Huh.
timing, man.
Yeah, really? Well,
Welcome
thank you
aboard.
for
So
having me on.
yeah, let me it's www.artvictim.net, right?
Yes.
All right,
Yep.
let's
Our
get that on
victim
there.
our victim everywhere. I got a link tree. I got
Awesome. Chuck that
so
in the, like if you're on, if you're looking at this on YouTube, chuck that in there. So I mean, like, have you heard of Alice in Chains?
oh yeah. Yeah. The
Right
the rooster,
now,
right?
right? Yeah,
I'm the man in the box.
yeah. I've been a fan of them the moment, probably like 87 or something, that they hit that in New Zealand. It came out about 11 o'clock at night, and that song Man in the Box was on there. The next morning, I remember how much I love the song and the band. That next morning, after seeing that 5 minute or whatever of that video on Radio with Pictures, we had a show like what you class as MTV, but it was like the
Mhm.
latest. It was the latest sort of like metal, rock, thrash. It's kind of like the 1 hour channel on TV One. I think it was at 11 o'clock at night when everybody else was at bed, and you as a fan, as a music fan, would stay up and watch. And I think it was on Friday night or Saturday night. It must have been on Friday night, because the next day I went to went to the city to buy the tape, right? Because all I did at that time was, because I had a Walkman, so tapes were the
Mhm.
thing. And so, you know, so I went I listened to that song, and I was like, damn, because I want to get the song, right? I mean, the tape to the song. And
Yeah.
I went and bought it straight away. Facelift, boom, I was into it. And I've ever since that moment, I've been a fan. There's like late 80s when it first came out. So if that song came on like for the first time on the radio, I mean on TV here, that meant the single had just been released for that album, right? For Facelift. And so I've been a fan ever since. I've got a T-shirt. I only buy T-shirts of things I like, right? And
Yeah.
so I've got a T-shirt of Megadeth, and and I'm waiting for a T-shirt of Metallic, Iron Man, shit, Iron Maiden. That'll complete my three best band trifecta, right? But so I'm gonna
Mhm.
play the song because
That
I've already
art
played.
was great for Iron Maiden too.
Oh yeah, Iron Maiden has the best art. Um, yeah. I mean, I used to draw that, by the way, when I was in my teens. And so I love Iron Maiden art, and like I just, I used to like learn how to draw it. I used to practice everything. So that's how I actually really got into illustrating. And for the last 30 years, because of my hand injury, I haven't, and that's why I let everybody else do the work. But I'm going to play the song at the start of the stream. I actually played the video, the live thing. So what I'm going to do is let's play that again. And actually, you know what? I'll play what they've got here, and then we'll look at the lyrics, right? And then I want to talk to you about the lyrics. Sorry, about the lyrics that they've got. Oh no, this is the 30-second thing. No, I don't want that. I do not want the 30-second thing. So So here's them performing live. One of the most, earliest, I mean, live performances that they had. This is from '92, so there's only 4 years after. And so JUNKHEAD is from the Dirt album, which is a second album, which I actually, I also bought, right, as a fan. So here's JUNKHEAD, and then we'll go into discussions about this, about artists, being an artist and stuff.
This next song was written about a hopeless junkie. It's called JUNKHEAD. The best in a long time. A new friend turned me on to the memory. Nothing better than a dealer's hand. Beyond the mix of what's not you can't understand the user's mind. But try with books and degrees. If you let yourself go and open your mind, I bet you can do it like what's not about choice? Why have you died?
All right. So
Yeah.
the reason I play that song, and as I was mentioning earlier, like my my brother-in-law works with people like in hospital. Like uh, he's kind of like administrator of an entire wing, right? Entire floor here locally. And my sister works with after like almost 15, 20 years, has now moved on to, being a nurse onto the cancer ward. So now they're right now here, they're building a
Mhm.
huge cancer, another department, because we found that a lot more people are getting cancer, and this has to do with a lot of food that is additives and shit like that. I know that because from Fiji, there's a lot of elderly people around about 50, 60 who have diabetes, who have cancers, who
Mhm.
have lung and, stuff, because all that, there's a lot of that happening because they're not used to the food and the
Right.
nature of how they
You know that
eat. Right?
westernization. All the America has a huge problem with it, and look what we eat. We eat junk. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
overseas, like our candies have warning labels on it. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, the food has warning labels on it from America, and that tells me a lot. And I am from
Yeah.
America myself, and that's the thing is, yeah, you look at the ingredients, and some of
Mm.
the most of the ingredients are just words you can't even pronounce. You know,
Yeah. You know,
you know,
it's the craziest thing. So now, the reason I play that song, right, Junkhead, because of the lyrics of that song has to do with addiction, right? It has to do with like I mentioned about my brother-in-law working with these things. And so a couple of years ago, must have been about 2 years ago, or maybe even a year, right? I asked my I mean, he had it on, right? He had it on. We're outside having a barbecue on his balcony, and he had the song on. And I just said to him, if you really think about this song, we talked about addiction and stuff. And I talked about how I had just, I think it must have been about 2 years ago, right? Must have been a year later, how I'd just given up uh, smoking, right? After 20 odd years, I went cold turkey. And I'd only, in that time of like the first 10, 12 days, I only broke it once because there was something here happening in New Zealand. This is during lockdown that stressed me and pissed me the most off, that I actually had to run around looking for a cigarette, right? And I was like looking for, through my like ashtray for the butts that I chucked out, right? So I could make up a cigarette, right? Because I do roll my own, right? Like you roll up your own tobacco, because I don't do like I didn't like smoking the Taylor ones because of the chemicals that are actually in the addictive chemicals that are actually in the Taylors, right? In the Taylor packet smokes. And so and then I also had vape. So my my dad said, why don't you go, because you're trying to give up, why don't you go to vape, right? And so I did. I tried to go for vape, and it didn't work. And it wasn't helping, because the thing about vaping is that you smoke more, right? Because you in your head you believe this doesn't have as much nicotine, so you smoke vapes more. That's why they have like in my little town city here, they have about one, two, three, maybe about four vape stores, right? and and used to only have one tobacco store, and now they have like mainly just vape store, right? And so people have this idea that just because it's vape, and because you're not like smoking ash into your lungs, that it's like, the belief that like it's not that bad on you. The only thing I think you should use that for is to help you get off smoking completely. So I tried for 20 odd years, right, to stop smoking. Whenever I'd get stressed, I'd start smoking. And so I talked to my, you know, I was, after this, like, you know, I talked to my brother-in-law. I said, hey, look, you know, we're listening to Junkhead by Alice in Chains, and we're doing barbecue, and he's frying some meats, you know. And I'm just talking to him, it's like, if you know, think about the song, you know, like, it's like, uh, you know, people don't understand what it's like to be have addictive nature. I kind of like the one nature I do have is like buying, right? Retail therapy is one nature I have that's very addictive after, you know, and people can have that as well, you know. So tell me, like, what's like, do you have any like addictive natures there, Art, that you've like been able to go, oh, this is kind of like my addictive nature? Did I put you on mute? Oh, oh no, you put yourself on mute.
Yep. So, sorry about that. Yeah, sometimes my
Okay.
keystrokes come through the thing, so I put myself on mute if I'm typing away. But yeah,
Okay.
so I even mentioned it. I think in my that interview you did a couple of videos back. I
Yeah.
noticed a while ago because I did a drug prevention program through one of the cities I was working with, and we did a bunch of art for that and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
it was addiction. It was to help battle addiction and things in children and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
anyways, in that I studied addiction a little bit because I study into my projects farther than most people do. Well, anyways, I realized I'm addicted to art basically, and I'm addicted to video games. That's for sure.
Yeah.
There has been some like weed issues. I got to watch out for that, and you know
Mm.
things like that. I mean, we're legal here, so that's where I got a little bit heavier than I really had wanted to at one point. So,
But
uh,
that's the other thing I was talking about. Vape, right? Vape is legal, right?
mhm.
And so we've seen 12-year-old kids smoking vape.
Yeah, and it's very bad for you. Vape is
12-year-old kids.
it is a liquid vapor, and it can
Yeah.
build up in your lungs and collapse your lungs from just the vapor alone. You know, even if you're
Exactly.
vaping water, you're not supposed to have that much water in your lungs. So
Yeah.
that's inherently part of the problem. Let alone having it be a higher dose of nicotine than you're supposed to be taking, or higher
Yeah.
dose of THC than you're supposed to be, taking,
Yeah.
or whatever you're vaping. You could definitely hurt yourself with it. So be careful.
But that's because something when something becomes legal, we actually do more of it because it's like, oh, it's must not be harmful, right? If we do more of it,
You're
and
right.
so
It's more prevalent. Yeah, definitely. You feel like you're not having to be against the law. I mean, back in the day when weed was illegal, it's like, going out and trying to get it, there was a repercussion to that. So
yeah,
you did kind of like be like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go out. I don't want to maybe get in trouble or whatever. I was kind of a light guy anyway, kind of
yeah,
light on it anyways. But there for a little bit, I was definitely heavier, and it can be bad on your life in many aspects. Sometimes the I get anxieties myself. That's what happens to me if I go too heavy on it, and then it hits your bank account too, right? So I mean, there's a lot of things that can be bad in any type of addiction. Addiction to art. I mean, if there's been times where I've spent my rent check on supplies, I can,
yeah.
and I mean, I can tell. For example, I got these cases that maybe a year ago. I needed to
Okay,
pay a little bit of. I needed to pay some bills, but there was at the resale shop. There was these cases. They're like a big TV case, basically. Imagine I don't know, 40 inches by 26 inches or something. These large TV cases, and there was a bunch of them, and I was like, man, I can stick my large flat stuff in there. I've always done stencils. I've always done poster size things. So I'm like, I can stick my flats in there easy. And I bought one of them, and I just went home and I thought about it. I thought about it.
yeah,
I thought about it all night, and then I went back and I spent some rent on it. And,
Yep.
and I'm glad that I got the cases. So like, I'm not ever gonna feel bad about that. But that's kind of what can happen. You can when you're spending, when you're spending your rent check on gambling, you're starting to think
Done that, man. Done
gambling
that.
addiction.
No.
So anything can be.
Yeah.
Some people it's porn. Some people it's you
Yeah.
know smokes. Sometimes it's drinking. Sometimes it's this or that. But anything that's problematic with your life, you gotta sit back and think like, am I doing this too much? Video
Yeah.
games are definitely another one that I got. Like art and
Mm.
video games are my main two. Um,
Yeah.
if I got a good video game in my hand, you know, I'll just tuck away the world and sit in front of that video game, and I'd be living my best life, really.
Yeah.
You know, and so I remember for a while I was living in Colorado.
Yeah.
Colorado is one of the best skiing areas of the world. Arguably, and
Mm.
Vail, Colorado. And here I am playing Battle Arena Toshinden, and my buddy's got SSX Tricky. There's like
Yeah.
a video game called SSX Tricky where you're snowboarding and stuff. So we're
Okay.
playing a snowboarding video game, and I'm just
At
sitting
the
there,
snowboarding mountain, right?
right, and I'm just like I just kind of looked out the window,
Yeah.
and out the window we have a huge mountain, right? There's a huge mountain,
Yeah.
like a pretty picture on my wall, but it's a real window. It's snowing to beat all hell outside, and
Yeah.
I'm playing video games, snowboarding on a TV. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? That's
Yeah.
when I realized I was addicted to video games. Me and my friends were in a dark little room, huddled around a TV set, just like
Mm.
crack addicts playing this video game, and we got the best conditions snowboarding wise outside our window. We could literally walk up the hill and snowboard, and and that's what I did. I put down the controller. I'm like, you dudes, I'm going out.
Yeah.
I'm going out. And that was the thing to do, and that's what you need to do. You need to be introspective and look at yourself and be like, what am I doing here? What am I really doing?
That's why, like, I want to talk about this Junkhead song, because, like, art addiction and artists and stuff like that. We we kind of, I think, for me, having thought about this week, like I mentioned, this song, this thing keeps coming up, so I'm going to see if I can get rid of that. But, like, it's a really good song on, like, realizing if you just switched out the words and you talk about artists and stuff, and what is the artist? Come on, give me lyrics. Give me the good lyrics. Jeff the lyrics. So, he talks about being, having someone introduce him to, to drugs. A good night, the best in a long time. A new friend turned me on to an old favorite, right? So he used to do it, like, because a lot of songs with Alice in Chain has to do with drugs.
Yeah.
And,
Well, a lot of the time period had to do with drugs. They were getting quote unquote better drugs at that time. There was a lot more of them. It was the grunge scene.
And not only that, dude, the people that, the label's giving them drugs.
Mm-hmm.
That the label has, like, dealers on call, because they have all these bands that they've got addicted to drugs. And that's what's been coming out recently, right? Like, even with the P. Diddy thing right now, right? They talk about how, like, P. Diddy, like, has got his freaking things on call, right? With drug dealers on call. Like, when you have money, right? I've watched this thing about where he walks into the shop and gets, like, dildos, right? Butt plugs and all that. And this is his bodyguard's talking like this. He's giving his bodyguard saying. So he's in the shop. He walks in, and the guy doesn't even know what the hell. What's that shit? Because, can I not just fucking shop? Shop alone. Shop for myself alone. Can I be? And this is what Diddy's saying, right? This is what the guy's testifying to, right? In an interview. And Diddy gets his bag of shit and walks it. And this, I'm talking about money, and this about profit, right? About how these guys move at this level, and when it tied back to Alice in Chains. So he just goes up to the counter, doesn't even put out what's in the bag so he can the guy thing in. He just brings a wad of notes, cash, shoves it there, and walks out. And the guy says, did he never walks around with a $20, $50, $100 note, right? So whatever that was there was that was in the thousands. And did he's got enough money that he doesn't have to worry about what's there.
Mm-hmm.
On that day, that guy at the shop, right? Let's say that's the dealer, gets all this money and he shuts his mouth and doesn't say nothing. He's happy. He's got his whole month's worth of wages made or business paid because that's where Diddy goes to. Now, we've had people talk about the music industry. Like, and I've been, because of this Diddy thing, a lot of people have been talking about a lot of things about the music industry, about how they get you addicted to, getting their clients addicted and take, basically one way is to using that to control them, right? Because once they're addicted, anybody's addicted to something is easily controlled by that thing, right? And we talk about porn, right? For males, more than anything, the male gender is addicted to porn. It's a visual thing. It has to do with visual, and you can call. This is why people say like,
well, I don't even. In my experience, I've known some women that are just as bad. So, I don't.
Yeah. But I mean, like majority, like 70 to 60%, right? Male counterparts. The male will be like out there and way out in the levels, right? If you do the ratio shit, and yeah, you're right, females as well. But
yeah, I don't know.
But they're more. They can hide it more, right? Because they're not. You don't see like the lascivious, the dirty old woman. You don't hear that, right? But you do hear the thing about the dirty old man because that's like the.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it on all different sides, but I can't really attest to any. It's not anything I've studied necessarily.
Yeah, but like we had and this is what threw me off a couple of years ago when I was in that's why I like talking with the artists and stuff like that. We were in a film class, and I've mentioned this before, but like I'll mention a bit more here. So we were in class studying media studies, and we're talking about we're just talking about just media and shit. And one of my friends, Nick, right? He good friend. I haven't talked to him for years, but this goes back about 20 years, 2004, 2005. And we're in class. This is probably our second year, I think. It might be our second year. So about 2005. And we're just media studies is where, and doing our film study, right, for a degree. This is like high level, right? Next one up is doctorate, right? Or undergraduate, whatever they call it. Is it undergraduate, man? After degree? Or is that like
I've heard the term undergraduate. I just don't want to say that I know exactly what it means. I'm gonna look it up real quick.
Yeah. Anyone watching, if you guys watching, if you know what what it is. Oh yeah, you're looking it up. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
a student at a college or university who has not yet received a degree. So basically, is a student in college. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been an undergraduate in arts for a few times, so now I understand.
Me as well.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I guess I could always consider myself an undergraduate too because I went to school for art a couple times, but I never really graduated for it.
Right. So we're doing a bachelor's degree and filmmaking, media studies, which means you're looking at researching media a lot. You're looking at how documentaries are made. You're looking at how films are made. You're looking at how commercials are made and how you can use film, a moving image, to propagandize people. So I'm very, because I'm of the mind where if I capture onto something, I go and look at it a lot. I'll spend a lot of time looking at all sides of it. Like when I wanted to go do my open up my comic shop, right? I spent an entire year researching all over the world what makes a good comic shop, right? And what makes it work, and why would someone come into it who's a child at the same time another one who's an adult, and why would a female or a male come into your comic store, right? And I won on all ends. Like the only thing I think that I lost on why I had to shut down was 2 other shops opened up. One was good, but another one's completely the same as me. And I found that a lot of people like to copy shit if it's successful. They're not innovators. They're followers and cheaters at at the game, right? They just copy out everybody else, and then they go, "I'm the first" later on, right? Because they think that they're the ones who came up with the idea. And so I and so getting back to the conversation about the topic about addiction. So in class, my friend Nick goes, and there's an argument happening between a feminist and Nick. Not an argument. We don't argue in our class. We always debate. And that's what I used to love about that sort of situation. Now people argue. It's like there's no discourse. There's no conversation about it. There's no agree to disagree. No, I see a point and I disagree, right? Or I hear what you're saying, but I don't, you're right. You're right. And so after and this had to do with addiction to pornography, right? And so he was just saying that males are more susceptible and more exploited by pornography than females. And I said, no, they're not. And then I realized, I said, yeah, because everything is marketed. Sell a car, have a chick in a bikini, right?
Well, sex sells, and it is. I've noticed a long time ago in art, if you look at the layout of what is drawn, it's always the woman form, right?
Yeah.
There's 90%. I mean, you get into landscapes and things like that, and,
Yeah.
but and animals, but 90% of what you see that's being drawn by an indie creator is a pinup style person.
Yeah. But that's also because males love the female form.
Well, and women do too. It's the women's form is just a beautiful thing.
Right?
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
I think that's it's it's a common trope to draw the woman's form.
Yeah. And so there are those guys on sort of the male feminists who have a problem with that without understanding the human nature, right? They're our counterparts. Yes, we are going to lift them up on a pedestal. Yes, we are going to be attracted to them. Yes, we do want to see beauty because what? Shall we draw, shall we draw animals all day long and not our counterpart who is our opposite gender, which is the female form? And I find anyone who sort of steps on that sort of has that whole, the sort of male gaze is kind of it's kind of like exploiting women. No, it's actually exploited from males if you really think about it, because we're the ones who will buy it. So we want to buy it, right? Like that form in front of you, right?
It's not even exploiting one. I mean, there might be somebody out there exploiting or whatever, but not everybody is.
No.
Some are appreciating, or
that's it. I don't mean exploiting in the sense of the exploitation of something. I mean exploiting it in the sense of hey, I'm drawing this beautiful work. Do you want that beautiful work? Give me the money for the beautiful work, and it's your beautiful. It's now yours. Mm-hmm. It's commerce as well, right? Because like we said, sex sells, but we demean it by saying sex sells. I think beauty sells, right? I think because we don't, just because it's got a female on there doesn't mean it's attractive, and it's and then you could go to market that gross looking thing. Like you look at what they did to Spider-Man, Mary Jane, right, in that video recently. It was a video game. Nobody liked that. It was a female, but then nobody liked that and they complained about it.
Oh, I guess I didn't see anything about that.
Oh, it was it was a Mary, where she's they actually had a beautiful lady who was actually the actress for it that was based on, but they really made her look ugly actually in the game. It was
oh,
what? Yeah, and and it was really cool. She was actually beautiful because I like redheads. I think red. It's just that they're not that many, and I mean real redheads, right? Because I had a girlfriend who was actually Irish and had red hair, or Scottish.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Scottish or Irish that have natural red hair?
I don't know. They call them ginger sometimes, right?
Yeah. I had two girlfriends actually. I actually had a girlfriend, and then I had a girlfriend who were both redheads, and so yeah, and so I mean, beauty sells, right? Selling at saying sex sells kind of means the whole idea of the fact that we like beautiful things. It's like, why do red roses sell more than white roses? Visually beautiful, you know.
Well, and
It's
the law of attraction, right? Like, where
yeah,
it's ingrained in our genes to be attracted to the
yeah, to the opposite sex, right?
well, or just yeah, especially, and then yeah, I mean, it's if you're back in the day, caveman, you're supposed to look for the most adequate mate, right? The one that's going to
Yeah,
give you the best offspring. That's animalistic in that way. So that's
yeah.
still in our DNA somewhere. So when we're
Oh yeah.
scanning a crowd, of course, you are attracted to the one that your mind thinks would be the the one. So
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't talk about these things because they think that like it goes into like chauvinism, or or it's kind of like you're demeaning something. And I find that because yeah, it's always like we always get silenced when we talk about this shit. Like males, when we talk about beauty and stuff like that, it's like, oh, you shouldn't be talking about that. You don't know what that is. You're trying to, do this and that about it. But like, to be honest, like if you want to sell something, you want to make it beautiful and attractive to someone. You can't just put out something that looks ugly and expect people to buy it. That's like putting out a dish of food, right? I'm a chef, right? I'm a trained chef. If I put out a thing and I just go, you know,
yeah,
and I go, here it is. You
yeah,
go,
you want your plate to be attractive. There's a
yeah,
whole art to it.
yeah,
So it just goes with anything. If you don't want to make an ugly car. If
yeah,
you're a designer, you want to have a quote unquote sexy car. You want that thing to look money so that people pay money to get
100%.
it.
Yeah. And I'm someone who's actually helped someone win a silver medal because of how the plate looked.
Mm.
Silver medal for, and amongst the entire fucking, course, first year, second year, and she was a second year, and I was like a third. No, she was a first year, like helping a first year win silver medal against all her people, all her competition group, that age group, right? I mean, like the class group, like across the, Northland, and because of me, she won that. And I'm looking at, I'm like, if I didn't show her how to do that on a plate, because this is the first time she did it, she would not have won that. And I went, you know, even though I didn't get the thank you or shit like that, I knew in myself that if I hadn't showed her how to do that shit, she would not have won. Her food might have tasted just as good, but when the shit looking at it, like the judges are looking at it, they're attracted to how that plate looks in the end, right? That's why people go to 5-star restaurants and eat little fucking pieces of shit on, on a plate, and there's like 20,
Mm.
30, $100 for just two pieces of, little bits of meat on it, right? Or like, when they have like whatever, how they dish it up, because it's that's the only reason you would go to a restaurant, because the food's going to be good, but it's also going to be put out to you in a beautiful way, displayed,
Hmm.
and
The
this is
best
what like
restaurant I ever
comics, right?
went. The best restaurant I ever went to, they brought it out in a big, the whole roast, and they'd cut it right there in front of you, and it's like
Yeah,
just like a beautiful roast, on.
yeah, table
And then
service.
yeah, and they had the suits on, and they'd come two at a time, and they'd carve it right there. It was just a good looking scene.
Yeah,
So it, and that was money. I mean, that was like an $80 plate, basically.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, with everything, you want it to look good, and I mean, with art, there is that whole ugly horror thing too. And but
yeah,
then when you do that, you want it to look horror. You want it to be the best look that you can get out
right.
of that.
Well,
You're hitting
talking
on
about
an
horror,
emotion.
right?
You're hitting on an emotion one way or another.
That's right. So talking about horror, let me bring up some horror. for you to look at. This is a comic book that we work. That's all the artwork's been finished on, illustrations, pencils. We've got one of our friends is doing the inks on it now, and we're going to be releasing it around about August. And so horror can look just as good, right? You could have something that's like really rubbishy looking thing, or you can have classic looking great, great art. So let me find one that's really, horrific, yet is, if you look at it, it looks beautiful. So where is it? Full page, was it 2021? Okay, here we go. Now it's going to come up on my Clip Studio Paint because I've been currently working on coloring a Christian Zepho pinup. So this is a piece by one of my, I'd consider him a good friend now, right? Artist friend. This is James D. Hill. And James, has done so many. Wait, where is it? My bad. Let me put that up. There it is. I just had it down so it didn't even show up. So this here is a horror comic, right? Supernatural horror comic. And if you look at this, there's some crazy ass thing going on. This is what I consider like my very I'd class it as a 17 or 18, right, here we go. Right. So
Okay.
So you look at that, right, and you
ripping
go,
the guts
wow,
out
that's
and the
pretty
tentacles
full
in the
on,
back.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a scene from hell. Yeah. So this is Templeton Rise and Fall art for issue 1. And that's why it's not for kids. It's not even, I wouldn't consider it for teenagers either, because there's some really mature things, images in there that's like a bit more in the sense of like, NC-17. So I would call it our red label, right? When it comes to like, or when it comes to our putting out a comic book. So it's not an M13, not M15, which is mature reader. I think it's more in the NC-17. And so, like you said, horror can be beautiful, and it's how the artwork is done. And one of them, I love the fact that we can have classifications, right? We can release it to older people or younger people, depending on the content. And so with art and beauty and stuff like that, getting back to the addiction type of stuff. And I was thinking about like that whole lyric, right? JUNKHEAD. And let me stop that and come back to here and go back to JUNKHEAD. Have a look at the lyrics and this part here, right? Can you read that out for me while I carry on with this, bud, please?
Yeah. And I do it a lot. Seems so sick to the hypocrite norm, running their boring drills. But we are an elite race of our own, the stoners, junkies, and freaks. Are you happy? I am, man. Content and fully aware. Money, status, nothing to me. Because your life is empty and bare. What's my drug of choice? Right? Find more lyrics. Oh, okay. Wait. they interject their own little thing in there.
Yeah.
What have you got? Don't go broke, and I do it a lot.
Yeah. And
I don't go broke, and I do it a lot.
and the thing about that is like like we were talking earlier, like how they're like, when you make it, when you get to the top, and I've heard people say when you get to the top, there's just more, right?
Oh yeah,
when you get signed to a record label, whatever you had before, there's just more of it, like a lot more. And who's that guy from like
when
Reacher?
you get to a point and you're just you're conditioned to that point, and then you're like, okay, this is normal now. You know,
Yeah.
this is normal. Then you look for something more. You look for something more.
Yeah.
I can't remember what wrestler it was, but there was a show that was like the real side of wrestling, and I was watching
Right.
it, and and I don't remember if it was like Jesse Ventura or Jake the Snake. One of those big guys was in a, you know, they were interviewing him in a dirty hotel room basically, and he was saying, he was just like, he's like, man, he's like, they're like, what ruined your marriage? He's like, man, you know, and don't quote me exactly on this because it's been a while since I
Mm.
watched it, but he was like, pretty much like, he's like, dude, when you had two strippers and all the cocaine that you can afford, you know, in
Yeah.
one night, he's like, regular sex is boring, you know. He's like, you go home to your wife and there's just normal missionary. He's like, you know, once you've gotten to this level, like everything else is just boring. He's like, so then
Yeah.
it ruins your life basically because it's not like you're gonna have that. You know, he was like pretty much saying like, it's like you're not gonna have that peak all the time.
And that's basically chasing that high, right? It's chasing a dragon. Like
Yep,
there
yep.
was a book called that, right? When I was in Christianity, and like happy Easter to everybody else, right? Wherever you are, if that's if that's what you follow, you know, happy, happy Easter to you guys. I have a background in both, being born in Indian, you just basically get into Hinduism becomes your de facto religion by choice. But my mom, like 80, around about mid 80s or early 80s when she came here, she just put that aside. She was really very heavy into Hinduism. She had had a little temple, um, religious idol set up in her cupboard. That was where she worshipped, right? However, later, a couple of years later, she realized that that was just idol worship, and that was just not Hinduism wasn't for her. So she turned to Christianity, and so she's on and off has been her thing for that. However, I have like families who are like extended family members who are Muslim, who are also Christian, and who are also different parts of Christianity, right? Like
Hmm.
Anglican, fundamental, whatever, Pentecostal. Myself, I've been through all that. And the reason I say that is like I respect it, right? And if that's where you're at with religion, I respect it. I'm not going to go out of the way to like piss on you or spit on you or make you feel bad about what you believe. That's not what I'm about. I think that's not how people should live. If you believe in that, that's your thing. Until you step over and try to harm other people, that's where I'm like, yeah, nah. Or you push your stuff on other people, that's where I'm like, no, 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 thank you. Carry on. But tomorrow I'm looking forward to it. I get to hang out with my sister. We kind of do this every year. Every Easter and every Christmas is very important to me because where our family gets together. And so I get to go hang out tomorrow, have a roast lamb, and a glass of wine and so on. So kind of like celebrating the whole Jesus rising on Easter Monday.
Hmm.
But I enjoy that because you need rituals, right? When you have young family members, it's important to have rituals. And I don't mean in negative rituals. I mean like, hey, let's go and have dinner at this time of that year, right? And then that becomes like a regular thing they can
Like
look forward
a
to.
family tradition, you're saying.
That's it. That's what I mean by ritual, like tradition. And so I enjoy that. I like kind of do that with with my sister's family because they're the only ones that are close by. My brothers are overseas in Australia, and sometimes with this stuff, mum and dad are able to come up. They're a bit dad's a bit elderly, about 80s. Mum's in her 70s, and so we don't try to push them too much to come up. But I get to hang out with my niece and nephews once a month. That's one of my rituals, one of my traditions, right? Where I want to make sure that I am not getting too egotistical in my brain because all the shit I do, right? Because sometimes you can become a bit what we call here big-headed in New Zealand
Hmm.
because you're doing too much. People call it pride or ego. I kind of find like if I go and hang out with every time once a month, if I go and hang out with my family, with my sister, I'm just normal uncle, brother. That's it, right? I'm not anybody else there. I'm not the comic guy. I'm not the podcaster. They could care less. I just get to hang out with them and be normal. And I need that. And I think a lot of people would benefit for something like that, some sort of tradition like that. And it's something I force to have happen because I need it, right? Because I need to be grounded, because I think sometimes, if you wear too many hats, the hats become more important than you just being yourself around your family. So with this, he goes, seems so sick to the hypocrite norm, running their boring drills, but we are an elite race of our own, the stoners, junkies, and freaks. And the reason we talk about the song, and is that, the reason we're talking about the song today and why I brought it up is that artists can be like that as well, right? We can become an elite race of our own, right?
Well, I mean, I think that music people are in artist realm, especially. I think artists are susceptible to that because they are susceptible to
Idolism, right? They become idolized.
Depression. I mean, they get into depression. They're deeper thinkers, for one. It also gets into the isolated rat syndrome. You ever hear about that, where the isolated rat drinks the drug water? There was a study back in the day where they would isolate rats, and they would give them a choice between drugged water or clean water, and the drugged rat or the isolated rat would drink the drugged water more times than not, sometimes to death. And so then, and I mean, there again, don't quote me on all this, but but then what they would do is they would socialize certain rats for different part of the experiment, and the socialized rats would not necessarily drink the drugged water, because they could smell it, whatever. And so, or whatever. So then that was kind of the test, so that's where artists sometimes they isolate themselves a little bit more than others. We're isolated within ourselves, and we're basically sitting around drawing, sitting around doing our music or whatever alone a lot of times. So that is another reason why they can get prone to this type of affliction, really. So with that deep thinking, that depression, that isolation, I think that's where you see artists getting into addiction. And then there's another whole aspect. There's another whole aspect too, is that and I've seen it in the tattoo world. Here you got somebody that doesn't make any money, right? Artists don't make any money generally, on the waters, they don't. So they're not making any money, whether they're a tattoo artist or they're or just a regular artist or, a musician or whatever. They're not making money. Put them into a position where they are making money, and then all of a sudden they're a rock star. That's why I say tattooing, is because you got a guy that knows how to draw a skull. He's doing it. He's doing it on his kitchen table while he's hanging out with some friends. And then he gets into tattooing. I've seen it a million times where they get into tattooing, and all of a sudden they can make $200 a day, $300 a day, $400 a day, blah, blah, blah. That makes them rock and roll all of a sudden. Like, they think that they're hot stuff because they just went from making, McDonald's wage to rock and roll money, where they're making $300, $400 a day. Then all of a sudden they got access. They think they're hot, so they're out spending it on, like they think they're P. Diddy, right? They're spending it with stacks, and then it gets into a rock and roll attitude where they're rich today and broke tonight and rich again tomorrow. So then they, I've seen it a million times where then they start having a big head on their shoulders, and then a lot of times, what are they doing? Like, I saw a lot of them in the industry. They'd make $100 in the shop, and then they'd go try to flip it on the street. So rock and roll, man, it'll bite you too. Because I don't know how many artists I've seen go to prison because of stupid shit. They weren't playing the art game; they were playing the gangster game.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, to be honest, that's why I do not like hip hop. I love the music, I don't like the lifestyle and the promotion of this sort of shit, like drugs, living that like unreachable. Like only 1% of all hip hop artists will reach that horrible, that high pinnacle elitism of their music, right? And the rest will be fighting and scrapping and what is that called? Crabs in a bucket kind of situation, trying to claw and hurt each other to get there, kill each other to make it work, right? And hip hop is the only scene where that happens in that level,
Oh, I
right? I
don't know.
know,
I don't know.
you
I
can
think,
say black metal happens that way, and that's
yeah. I
also
mean,
happened
look
with like
into
some metal scenes.
look
But
into
I'm talking
some of
about
the
numbers, right? I'm
boy
actually talking
bands and stuff. They were. I mean, the producers on all those are
about,
dreadfully wrong a lot of times. You know,
yeah.
I
But I mean,
wouldn't just put it. I would say that they're owning up to it is what they
yeah,
do, because they almost make it a game, or they make it a status, is like,
yeah. How many
what
how
would
many
they,
people have you taken out on your way to the top, right?
right?
It's kind of, yeah, and
But
and that whole,
there's other ones that don't. There's it depends on what
yeah,
people you're talking about in the hip hop genre.
yeah. But I mean, like I kind of like think I'm talking about numbers, like statistics,
You
like
know,
how many people have died. And so I was listening to I think it's Jaguar Black or one of the hip hop or R&B singers, and one of her interviews, she said if you look at Clive Owens, who's on this white dude who's been doing music in Motown and all that, you see if you look at all of his female people, most of them have died young and addicted, right? And so I look at that and I go, shit, that's pretty crazy if you really think about it. How come all his artists are like addicted to, pills and all this stuff? And then other people's aren't in that situation. But like this thing says, like, like where's that line? Money doesn't matter, status doesn't matter at that point because you
yeah.
have it all.
Look at
You got it
the
all.
look at the lyrics in I put it in your private chat so you can screen it before you put it up. But the lyrics on this J. Cole song are pretty good in my opinion too. And basically I say it a lot in my own life is the good thing is, man, you went a long way, but the bad thing is you went the wrong way. You know, and
Yeah.
it what it is. It's guarding. It's saying, dude, you can go a long way in this game, but you just got to watch out for going the wrong way. You know, you
And
can.
carry on. I'm just gonna bring this up, but I was gonna. Is it yours? Love yours? Is that what it's called? Am I on the right song?
Yeah, yep. J. Cole of yours. Like, there's no such thing as a life that's better than yours. You know.
Hold on. Let me bring it up so you can just everybody can see it. And like I said, guys, if you want to be part of this discussion, like I love having these discussions, and that's why like I invited Art here, because two artists shooting shit, right? And
For,
I know there's other people like me who think about these things deeper and more,
mhm.
because I think it's important to at this age, you have to think about these things because now people are looking at you, right? Because if you're out here on YouTube and shit like that, people really want to know what you're about. Because if you're just mouthing off and all day long, there's some important, the important discussions to have. And so I love talking to artists about art, but also there's a deeper thinking process behind it. So is
Mhm.
this where did you want me to go for the lyrics, bro? For the actual line?
Well, I mean, the whole thing says a little bit if you read into it.
Okay, let me
Fake
pop it
fake
out and I'll
fake
get you to.
people. There's snakes in the grass. You know.
Okay, here is this the one here? What's money for?
Yeah. What's
Let's
money
go with
without
that.
happiness? Basically, you know what I mean. What's
Yep,
money without happiness? He's asked strength from God.
read it out, dude. Read it out.
Well, and I'll censor some things out, but I ask for strength from Lord above because I've been so strong. I've been strong for because I've been strong so far, but I can feel my grip loosening. Quick, do some thing before I lose it for good. You know, so, you know, you're talking about he's struggling. You know, the people struggle in this because they're coming up too, and they're trying not to get caught up in the game. You know, the wrong
Yeah,
game.
the rap game, right?
Yeah, rap game, just the music game in general. You know,
Yeah,
and then he talks about you know, to all those people out there living in debt, cashing minimal checks, turn on the TV to see somebody's Rolex, you know, and
yeah.
you fantasize about this stuff. You're like, man, I want that. I want
And
that. I
that's what
want
I'm
to go
saying, right?
right,
That's what I'm saying. Only 1% of these guys are at there. Everybody's at the bottom looking at and going, I want that, idolizing that. And what will they do to get there?
right.
Right?
So that's where he's talking about. He's like, you can go out and get that one way or another. He's like, but watch out for getting, you know, getting it without happiness and getting it without doing it right, because you can get there. You know, I mean, the tagline is in here is good thing, man, you went a long way, but bad thing is you went the wrong way. You know, you got it the wrong way, and so looking back on your life, you don't want to look like you were a crab in a bucket. You know, stepping on other people to get up. That's not the right way.
Yeah.
So you know, there's a lot of people in any genre that will look and they'll tell you the same thing
Yeah.
if they're good. I always like this song, you know. So
One of
yeah,
one of the things about this is like, you know, Hollywood's having that same awakening now as well, right? Like, is that the lifestyle we want our kids growing up in? Is that sort of like, you know, that spoiled, over the top? What was it like for them, right? Growing up, and they all like sort of got turning back, going, I don't want that for my kid. I don't want them to be part of this Hollywood, you know, elite sort of thing, because then they will get all, you know, get twisted. They'll get it twisted. So Alan Richardson, right? He talks about like how his agent, female agent, tried to Me Too him, on purpose, and he basically put a rope around his neck in his attic. And he talks about this. There's a, you know, Alan Richardson is his name from the TV series Richard, right? They just had season 2, and he talks about this in this. And I actually saw this because when Reacher came out, I was like, oh, the trailer up, and I was like, who's this guy, right? And my dad's a huge Jack Reacher. Who's the guy who does the books? But he's a fan, and so is my brother-in-law. Like, they love that series, right? They love their books. They both read it, and they're both, you know. But my dad's been reading it for years, you know, and so he goes, you know, Alan talks about in this interview with the guy who played Lex Luthor in Smallville TV series. I can't remember his name, but he's a bald-headed guy, right, in that show. But so he's got his own podcast, and he talks to Alan. And Alan's like, it's about an hour and a half, hour to hour and a half interview, and he talks about how he got his agent, but he walks, you know, he goes to see his agent about some contract, and she goes, if you don't sleep with me today, I'm basically gonna say you raped me. This is at the top. The guy, and he goes home and he goes, I'm done. I've got kids and I've got a wife. I'm done. If this, and he puts a rope around his neck or whatever it was, he's hanging in there, and he says, and I only saw this again recently, it must have been like yesterday or something, you came across on this, and they're talking about this whole game, right, at the top. And he says, and all I could see is my kids as adults, and it's almost young kids now, as he's got there as adults, and talking to me and saying, you know, I'll let you guys watch that. And he says, this, and when I saw that vision, I just said, I took it off. Like, he just said, you know, and if he hadn't done that, we would not have Reacher right now in that class, and that everybody loves Reacher, right? It's such a big, huge show. Yet you look at that young, that actor, right? I won't say young. He's probably about 35, 40, so he's younger than me. I don't think he's 50. We wouldn't have that show being the way it was without him. And that's what I mean. I hate losing, like having lost Lane Staley at a young age, right? Because that means we've lost so many decades of music. It's almost like what, 90s he died in, with overdose and stuff. Uh, and so with art and that addictive nature of art, right? That we have, like, I remember putting up and thinking about this week. I remember putting up a post about how I was having a difficulty being an artist in the sense that, like, that whole addictive nature of being an artist, that I couldn't, like, I had to do it, right? I feel frustrated when I'm not doing art. I'm when I'm not creating. It could be anything, whatever I'm doing. Like, I could be doing pottery, like doing a sculpture. I could be painting, acrylic, oils, whatever. I haven't done oils probably in about 30 years. No, about over 20 years. I wouldn't say 30 years. And by the way, there's dozens of paintings. No, probably just over a dozen oil paintings I've done, which is around the world. I've done acrylics, like way over the dozen. And actually, talking about Easter, I actually did Jesus on a cross, and digital. There was like a little tiny image. There was like back in the 90s, right before like memes and all that shit was available. You had a huge book that Microsoft put out or somebody put out. It was just full of like that came with a disc. There was just clip art, right? So I took this clip art that was it was black and white of Jesus on the cross, and just an outline, and I made a huge 1 meter, a 1 meter by 40. What is that? Yeah, about 40 across, bright red, like this red background with Jesus on the cross. I think there was 3 of them. Golgotha, Skull Mountain, whatever they call it. And so that was the 3 images of that. And I actually won a competition with that, and I just gave it to my friend. Right, Sonia. I just went, here, Sonia, you have this for your birthday. Right, that's how I used to be. Right, here, you have this, you have that, you have that. Because I felt that was better than giving somebody a voucher or somebody something that I bought. Like, if you make something, it's actually sharing your time and energy, and has more value than if you're just giving, just buying something, right? So a lot of my work is all over the place. Now, so I was struggling, this is about 2 years ago or something, maybe even 3 years ago, about being creative and struggling with the idea of having this nature as a creative person. And anybody who's not creative might not understand that. And that's why I said, like, JUNKHEAD, right? That song kind of makes me feel like that's what, like, the best way I could describe artists is, having that addictive nature. You can't understand an artist's mind, right? That's what I was thinking about this week. But try with your books and degrees, and if you let yourself go and open your mind, I bet you'd be doing like me, and it ain't so bad, right? And what's my drug of choice? It's art, right? And what have you got? I don't go broke because I can just do some artwork, and I do it a lot, and it's kind of that's what really got me. It was like, are you happy? I am, man. This is what I was getting frustrated with my art. I was like, fuck, and like I was talking about my brother-in-law, right? And he's he works at he's dealt with addictive nature, addiction and people with addictions in the hospital, right? At his wing and stuff like that. And he's at his high level, administrator at that level, right? And so he puts out, he goes, listen, and I was saying, like, normie. I wish the thing was, I was so frustrated. I said, I wish I was a normie. I wish I didn't I wasn't an artist. I wish I wasn't a creative person, because I wouldn't feel this way. Right?
I've said that so many times. Man, I wish I wasn't weird. You know, like, I wish, like, it's almost like an ignorance is bliss type thing. I wish I wasn't this way.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And he just turned around and he said, look, don't worry about it, right? It's better than being a normie. You have something, right? And
I
I'm
mean,
paraphrasing here, right? And he said that. He said, like, and I was like, yeah, why the fuck am I getting frustrated over being a creative person? And
well, I
this is
mean,
why I get frustrated, right? That's why I'm right now being frustrated with people who are talking about like not listening to creative people, because they're in the production. They're all about production. They're all about the executive producer. That's what, like, of the film. They're not the actual person who makes the film. The director who's on the set going, okay, stand there because I know this shot with you in that angle will look beautiful here. And if you then turn this way a bit and say that, it would be more impactful if you say, like, face to face. That's the creative person. The production guy goes, yeah, that's good. Now stand over here. That's good. They don't understand that part. And so that frustration that comes from being an artist is what makes us, and I don't want to like hype ourselves, because we're just what we are, right? It's the nature of the beast, right? Being a creative person, we go through all these emotional things. That's why, like, a lot of us get addicted to a lot of alcohol and drugs and all that, because we don't know how to deal with the frustrations we have as a creative person.
mhm.
Carry on, Art.
Oh, I mean, I got a quote that I say, and let me see if I can remember it exact. How I've said it so many different ways that it comes out different. But artists are blessed in being able to see such a beautiful, how the world could be so beautiful, but
Yeah,
they're basically you cursed to live in a normal world. So we can see how this thing could be marvelous, but then we're blessed to live in a normie world where we go down the road and every house is the same bland color. You know what I mean? Everything's in a row. Where um, you know we, things could be so marvelous, but we're cursed to live in a normal world. So I mean, yeah, that's where, yeah, so I wish that the normal crowd would take a look at what we do and just let us run with it. But they a lot of times will say, just take all the cool right off of that. Take the balls right off that piece, because it almost blows their mind, right? Like, they're looking at normal landscape art and they're like, oh, that's beautiful. Well, we look at surrealism and we look at abstract, and we look at all these things. That's what we're into. We're looking at the next level. We're looking at beyond next level stuff, and we're beyond everything that they see. So when we show them that world, it almost blows their mind too much, where they can't even handle that much, and they're like, whoa, back it down, back it down a little bit, so that they can ingest it almost. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like, so yeah, I mean, I get it, but that's where the struggle is. Yeah, it's where there's always that back and forth. I had a teacher in one of the colleges I went to, and he was he was so pretentious. I didn't really even like this guy, but he was just like, he's like, throw away your old friends, basically. He's like, you're not even going to be able to go back and talk to them anymore. They're not going to understand you. And at the time, I definitely didn't understand that. I mean, he was just way too pretentious for my liking, and I was like, okay, dude, you got a big head on your shoulders, right? Well, I mean, I kind of understand it a little bit now. You can tell somebody, listen, the composition is all off for that, and if you were to change this hue just a little bit, it could give you a better mood, and then people are like, no, I don't know, I like him right in the center, why can't you put the dude right in the center, and you're like, well, that's, it's drawing, it's not as pleasing, to, but that's where art is in the eye of the beholder, and 90% of the beholders are normal sometimes. So it's kind of, that's the that's the trick of the thing, right? Are you making for yourself, or are you making for the normal crowd?
Yeah, I think, I mean, like,
And you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And if it's not
right,
attractive to the normal crowd, sometimes it's only attractive to a certain mindset. And sometimes,
right.
that's
And
where I noticed in my art sometimes, the people that like my stuff more so are artists. I
yeah,
sometimes I'm looking, I'm looking at my fan base. I'm like, I got more artists that are into my stuff uh, than normal crowd, because if I do something for myself, it's not necessarily hitting a trend. Kind of like
well,
those.
I think you're wrong there. I think you're wrong there in the sense that, like, you have a very commercial art style, and I appreciate that. And don't get me wrong when I say
Oh well,
commercial art style,
no, I mean
because
I see it because I studied a lot of pop culture,
right,
so I do really try.
yeah.